Tarik Talk. Your host, Tarik Mendez, takes you on a journey with guests from all around the world. Broadcasting around the world. Around the world. This is Tarik Talk.
All right, guys. Today we are here with Alexander Yulish. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to have you here. Alexander and I, we met during the Mana Open Studios.
Yes. And
it was a pleasure being in your studio. I love the work. I'm excited to be able to talk to you about that. Would you want to start telling us a little bit about yourself first?
So I grew up in New York City.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And my mom is a sculptor and a painter.
Oh, wow.
And so I grew up in this really outrageous household that was filled with art and just commitment to art and everything you could possibly think of. We had the New York City Ballet would come over. Robbie LaFosse and all these unbelievable dancers would come for Thanksgiving. And then you'd have performance artists come for Thanksgiving.
Oh, wow.
And when Thanksgiving would come, she would hire the kids who stayed at Juilliard who wouldn't go home for the vacation, and we'd have them play. So that's kind of an idea of what the household was like. And growing up in that artistic household had a profound influence on me becoming a painter.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And do you want to start with a little bit of your creative process?
My creative process, it morphs, but fundamentally, what doesn't change is just getting in the studio, just showing up, which I think is probably the most important aspect of any job. You just have to show up, and I get in there the second. I don't even take a break.
Yeah.
Usually when I get to the studio, the minute I'm there, I just get in my painting clothes and just go straight to work. There's no taking some time.
Yeah.
It's just everything I have immediately. I usually don't take breaks, so I'll work extended periods of time until I'm really, really exhausted.
Oh, wow.
And that helps.
So that's so interesting that you say that, because my previous guests, they always say to them, it's like they get in the studio and they have to kind of like drink a coffee, read a newspaper. Yeah. So I find it fascinating because I'm a little bit like that with my process. Like you just dive right in. I
dive right in, as I feel like that's the purest form. If I have too much time to go over things or plan things, I mean, I already have a plan, but it's just I go straight to it. Exactly.
So when you show up to your studio, do you kind of like have an idea or a vision that you wanted to like bring out physically?
I do. Yeah? Usually there's color schemes. Usually I'll have an idea of what I want to do, but inevitably that changes so many of the time. You know, I'll have an idea of what I want to do, and I keep on carving it in, and then I realize that it just isn't working. So then you have to do an alternate. Yeah. And a lot of times that happens, and those explorations I think are exciting because there's an unpredictability about it.
And the day before you start going to your studio, do you kind of like set everything up for the next day, so when you can come in you can just get right to work? Or
usually I don't. Usually I'll take the day that I've decided to just need off, and then I'll organize the studio, organize my paints, refill paints. So there's a
okay, I see.
So I have trouble compartmentalizing my time. It's either very black and white in the sense that this is what I have to do, and this is how I'm going to do it, and then this day I really can't think about anything other than just organizing.
Yeah. As you mentioned, you don't really like stop when you get into the work. You're like, you know, like an endless creative in a way. Do you have trouble when you start a project or a painting? Do you kind of feel like turmoil not being able to finish? Like, is that your goal, to start something and finish it?
Yes. You know, everyone has their own process. I just heard that Van Gogh, majority of his paintings were painted in one day.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
I mean, I hope I'm correct. That would be really bad, just throwing out these facts that actually are completely not true. But there was this need to least how my interpretation is, this need for one complete thought. Mm-hmm. And when a thought is broken up into days and stages, it isn't as pure. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is for Van Gogh. It's interesting. It takes me a long time to do a painting. Yeah. But when I go home, sometimes it just, then I'm like, I have to go back to the studio. It's like this unbelievable, profound neuroses that happens where it's really hard to really take time off in the sense, because you're constantly trying to rework something. And when I get home, there's a lot of times I'll have to go back to the studio because it's just it
kind of like disturbs you in a way until it's
disturbs you. Just I want to get to a point where you can not make peace with a painting, but the conversation is just not done. It's like, two people having a deep-hearted conversation, and it's not complete. And you leave, and you left something out. Mm-hmm. So when you have the ability to complete a conversation or do your best possible, see, I think that's when a painting's done for me and resolved. Is when a conversation is fulfilled, and being able to experience that potentially creates a painting, and then there's a domino effect. Then people see the work and they subconsciously experience what you've gone through. I mean, people who look at work, they're pretty smart. They know. I mean, they know if you didn't put your heart into it. Yeah. They can tell. And I feel like I just want to put everything I have into it, so there's just nothing left to say.
That's amazing. And when you're creating, do you have any like music or like TV or news playing in the background?
A lot of music, and that is, I need to be, and I need to do a repetition. Mm-hmm. Like I don't like, there's certain classical pieces, or Philip Glass, or the Walkman, or Future Islands, or those I'll play and repeat, so I know every song. I know every movement. Yeah. Because if I listen to something new that I'm not used, it distracts me. So
I'm like that too. Wow.
Yeah. So I almost.
Are you Scorpio by any chance?
Taurus.
Taurus. Okay.
Taurus.
Yeah. Because you definitely have like Scorpio like attributes. Because I'm the same way too. That's so interesting. It's like talking to, I don't know, like a twin version of myself. Like certain things you said, it's so fascinating. And are you an artist that like people around you while you're creating? Like can you paint, let's say, like if you have like friends in your studio or other people, or you kind of need like that alone time?
I can paint to a small degree. I can. If it's a very small group who I really can trust, who understand my process, understand the work, I'll go and I can rework something while someone's in the room who I know, like one of my artists, Geraldine, not my artist, but she's this unbelievably one of a kind talent, and I can work with her in the place. Oh, wow. But with strangers, it's very intimidating for me, and I don't think it's productive.
If, like, let's say you're working on a painting and somebody that you weren't planning on coming to the studio, are like let's say they knock, you open the door, you talk to them for a little bit, are you able to pick up exactly what you were doing, or you kind of have to like wait out, get the vibes and inspiration again?
Like inspiration is something that unless it's just a terrible experience with that person, then it's a little difficult to go back. But I'm going back to the studio later today, and just seeing these colors you're on, seeing, talking to you, subconsciously, it's going to be directly in my peripheral. Yeah. And, I'll bring that. Even an uncomfortable conversation when someone walks into a studio could also, it could just change the whole momentum of a painting. A phone call on the phone. Sometimes I paint while I'm on the phone for a second, like just because it's just gets you out of your head. So I'm talking about something, but I know I'm working on this. That's very rare, but when it does, sometimes it's a nice break where you're not thinking. Yeah.
Would you say your mind is always thinking as an artist?
Yeah, it's constantly. But at the same time, when I'm painting, you're thinking of. I try not to think as much when I paint, but what I am thinking about, it's almost like a puzzle. If I put a color to the right? How is that going to be balanced by another color? So constantly thinking of it as a puzzle and trying to, like almost like a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
You know, you're thinking, but at the same time, when you get in the zone, you're just, it's going. It's moving at lightning speed. And that ferocity and that need to express what's going on in a clear, precise thought is paramount.
Yeah. And are you like when you play your music while you're creating, do you try to reflect your mood to the music? Like, do you try to pick something you're feeling, or you just kind of like hit shuffle in a way?
I try, and it's funny. It's not. I try to not figure out what emotion. I figure out what emotion I'm doing. Like, I like going into the studio, not feeling anything, because if I go in there feeling rage or sadness or feeling just enlightened, it triggers a part of a painting which I don't think is pure for me. I like going in even keel and then discovering the depths and then the ups, because in life it's like that too. You're 2 breaths away from collapse at times, or 2 breaths away from enlightenment, or 2 breaths, and you only figure that out is when you settle down and you really figure out what's going on. And that happens once I start painting. But I don't like to come in with a preconceived idea. Sometimes if I'm just not present and feeling distracted, you'll see a distracted, not clear painting.
Yeah. And do you ever, when you paint something that you may not like in the moment, or are you the type of artist that like you kind of leave it to the side, or do you get mad and rip it up?
You know, I always think if I could. So when I'm painting, if I don't like it, I'll just paint over it, and I'll
like
keep on
the same day or later on. Oh,
and
wow.
then if I go back to the studio, like there's a painting I just did that it has such a life underneath it, but I know I can push it. I know I can push it to the brink, and it has all that history underneath it.
Yeah.
So it'll be like 5-6 paintings underneath that, and I know that energy comes back and reverberates through that canvas and into the viewer.
Do you ever find like once you finish a painting, and let's say time has gone by and you look at it and you see like maybe subconsciously things you were feeling but you didn't know? Do you ever have that experience? Like feelings that you didn't make sense for you, let's say that month, but then like much later on you're like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense looking at this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, probably you experience the same things, just like in anything. Certain things trigger, all of a sudden a color. You'll see a color that you did, and you'll just realize that color really represented something that was profound for you at that moment.
Yeah.
Really, really profound. So memories are constantly bleeding through the canvas. Colors are completely, they really bring a history of your life. So yes, put it simply.
Sorry, I'm trying not to cough while you're talking, so I'm
No,
trying to
it's
hold it
completely fine.
until you finish, and apologize about that.
Fine.
And are you an artist, like where do you find yourself having like the best ideas? Like for me, when I'm in motion and I'm playing driving, that's when it comes to me. What about you? Like do you have to be still or present in the moment or emotion to like, where does your ideas come for you?
I usually do an outline on my painting.
Oh, wow.
And then bring that outline and then do the outline and then just start building on it.
Oh, wow.
Really just building. Just feel it's a very visceral, extremely visceral experience for me.
Excuse me. The thing I loved about your painting when I was in your studio a few weeks ago, there was a painting, I would say it's probably like 48 by 72.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a gentleman going, like looking to his side. That's the vibe I got.
Yeah.
And there was like a blue, I don't know, I think like you kind of like use something flat to kind of like brush off a little bit. It was like a bluish.
Yeah.
Can you tell, I'll make sure to include that in the video and then the Instagram for the promo material. Can you tell us a little about, because it reminded me a little bit, a little bit of Francis Bacon.
Yeah.
Who is your creative influences?
They're all over the place. You'll have I'll have a classical musician, who the work is just, you listen to, even though I don't listen to Mozart or Beethoven, I mean, it's almost like there's a complete channel.
Yeah.
Some of those melodies are a complete channel from just another place.
Yeah.
And they really, so people usually, I mean, the question of, if I had 5 people I'd have dinner with, live or not alive, I really have trouble with those because everything seems to have an impact.
And are you an artist that prefer, do you have a daytime preference of when to get creative? Are you a night person or a morning person?
Morning and at night.
Both?
The middle, when I get tired, I have to stop. But some of my favorite work, I woke up in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, and went right to the studio. And there's a silence that's happening when you leave to get to the studio that is unrepeatable during the day.
Yeah.
There's nothing, to me, the most beautiful time is when it's almost this twilight.
Sorry, I was visualizing because that's so true. There's such I think, beauty and a quietness during the night. And for me, my favorite part is knowing I can really dive into the work because I know nobody's gonna call me or reach to me that I have to divide my attention and talk to them.
Yeah.
To me, there's a beauty in working at night.
Yeah.
And then do you have a preference of materials that you use?
I love just golden. I use a lot of golden acrylic. Acrylic is really important for me because there's an immediacy that comes along with using acrylic. I'll use oil stick and then move the oil stick in a way to mix with acrylic. Not really mix it. It doesn't dry if you do that. But there's a dialogue that happens with those materials. And those are mostly, pretty much everything I use is just acrylic.
Excuse me again for my cough. And that there is a big painting that I love. And I'll make sure to include that as well. How big was the painting?
Oh, the big one.
The big painting,
so that's 10 feet tall by 18 feet long.
Oh wow, okay. And how did you? Is that your first biggest painting
it's
ever?
It's my third.
Third? Oh wow, there was bigger than that?
No, that's the biggest size. Third that size.
Oh wow.
And that's the biggest size I really have done.
And how did you what made you go for such an astronomical size?
I had done a show in Los Angeles, and I remember he looked at me, and I had done, maybe 10 7 by 7. And he pretty much just said, "We need bigger."
Oh wow.
And I said, "How big?" He goes, 10 by 18 feet.
Oh wow.
He says, "I want that for the center of the show." And I just tackled it, without thinking. I drew the outline, drew what I wanted to do, and then I just did it. There's almost it's almost like you hooked, you're fishing, and all of a sudden you hook, a great white shark. It's just so overwhelming, but you figure it out.
Yeah.
You completely figure it out. And sometimes it falls apart miserably. And then you just have to get back and figure out how to define what your mission is, which mission is just to complete a painting that has a complete conversation attached to it, whether someone likes it or they don't.
And were you intimidated by such a challenge, or were you excited?
Oh, I got excited.
You got excited?
Yeah, it gets excited. There's it's really exciting for me to be able to get to do challenges like that.
And where do you, as you mentioned, your mind is always thinking. Would you say that painting is the place where you can kind of have your mind relax a little bit and be in the present, or do you have other nature or travels?
There's a couple of nature is really important to me. Being in the studio, I wouldn't say I'm relaxed. It's just, there's a misconception, as you talked about, as artists. We come in, we have our coffee, we have a cigarette, then we, do a couple of strokes, and then we sit back and look at it, and then just, I'm like, it is, as it is, a brutal, wonderful experience. You know, that a lot of emotions come up. So I kind of just forgot the question, but I think it's not peaceful for me. It's not peaceful. I'm working.
Yeah.
I'm working, and I know how fortunate I am to be on that studio and doing it. That's what I do know.
And when you, as you mentioned, you go in the studio and you get to work, do you need to have certain things kind of like organized in a way? Like, do you think about leaving the studio and materials organized, or do you like the chaos and the process of like getting things while you create?
I need my table organized once a week, and then I start getting overwhelmed if it's more than that, because I can't see colors, I can't find colors, and then you just spend all this time looking for a certain color. So I think you saw my studio. My table it's pretty. It needs to be cleared a bunch of things.
I mean, the vibe that I got, because sometimes like when I'm in deep creative process, like for some people it looks disorganized, but for me, I know exactly where where everything is, and when I'm in the process, it's like very like facilitated for me in a way. Are you like that too? Like where?
I mean, you really do know where everything is, but sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. Like right now, I have paints that are literally down to the last drop, and they're covering paints that I could use. So no, it's getting a little confusing. That's why probably when I get back today, because I finished painting today, then I'll go back and probably just organize the studio, and then 2 days later it'll be back to exactly where that was.
And do you have like, as an artist, do you have like, I mean, I call it like organized days where you kind of just go in, you're whatever mood you may be, good or bad, and you just know, okay, I have to like take pictures of work. This is more like a business day today. Do you have days like that? You have to. It's a business also. It's not a hobby. So as you know, you have to treat it like a business. You have to show up, do the work, then you have to do the marketing, and let your gallerist take control of certain things. But you really have to create create exactly what you said. Create time for all those different verticals that are in the art world. And do you have, like, when you're doing creative things and you have to stop and do like a business part of the let's say business, are you able to do both at once? Or like for me, I can't really do like creative things when I have to do business things. So for me, it's like a business day where I have to do everything
completely.
Do you divide things like that too?
I have to. Because then I get exhausted. So if I'm painting all day, then I go to the business part of it, I'm already just spent. So I need that energy to be able to do the other way.
And over time, have you always been like that, or like through like your process that you kind of learn, okay, maybe it's better that I step back? Or did you always were you always like organized like that?
I mean, you go through periods where, like tomorrow, maybe I will paint and then do the work part of it. But maybe that's better to say. Majority of the time, I like separating it. But some days it's a dance that happens, and sometimes I'm able to have enough stamina to do that. But usually, I like to leave it all in the studio for that day, and then I get excited to go paint. After that day that I did all the work.
And where do you see yourself in like 10 years creatively? Like, do you have any projects or any like mediums you want to tackle?
I think I want to get into sculpting eventually. I think I want to be able to bring forth the dialogue that I have in my paintings and put them into a very figurative bronze shape, but at the same time bringing the abstraction in. So I think that's what I am, a figurative abstract painter.
I was going to say that because your work, I was visual, after I left your studio, like I kind of like, I was like visualize it in a way in my head. I said, oh, this is so cool. I love this detail. I love this painting. And I thought, my gosh, you would really like, I wish like whenever I think the steel work or like, as you said, bronze, I said that would be really cool to see like that painting come to life in a way. Like I feel like it would have like so much diversity to it, and like so many backgrounds and details, but then to be so abstract, you know. So I thought, oh my god, I was thinking to myself, well, I hope he definitely goes to that, and I hope I can see it, because that would be so amazing.
I'm really excited. So that's where I do right now. I was just having a talk just with a dear friend, and it's just, I think I'm on the verge of some sort of breakthrough in the sense of a dialogue, a new dialogue that's coming out, because I just feel like I'm hitting a wall at full force without a seatbelt, and it's like really uncomfortable right now being in the studio. So I know if I just work through that and push through that, something interesting is going to happen.
Oh, that's amazing. I love how self-aware you are, because most people are just like chill and day to day, but that's amazing that you have this self-awareness creatively. So one thing when I started this podcast, I was trying to be different from other podcasts related to art and every genre, was that I wanted to interview the same artist almost like every year or every 2 years, whatever their time is. So I'm very much looking forward to the next time we sit down and talk. Excuse me, especially with the steel sculpture reference that you said. I think that's going to be so fascinating, and it's almost like a prophecy, like we're predicting the future.
Yes.
Now, right? If you think about it.
Yeah, we are exactly, and I think the human condition that at least I experience, and I think if you don't grow, like in a year, I don't want you to see me as the same person, even just communicating. It's like I want to be able to be an enhanced version, if that makes any sense. It's not about being a better version or anything. It's just a different version. It's like if I said to you, you asked me what my favorite food was, and I'm like, it's sushi. A year from now, I want to say it's something else, not for the sake of saying it's something else, just because you
want to get better in a way.
I
right?
want to. In every aspect of my life,
innovate in a way.
Innovate, with getting closer with friends, getting deeper friendships, getting more expressive, just growth, and that there's a direct correlation between, I think, also painting. Putting in the work, doing the work, being able to find out what you can communicate clearer.
And are you an artist that keeps like a sketchbook of ideas, or do you keep your ideas in your mind?
I keep a sketchbook at times, but when I get to the studio, I have an idea, and then I'll sketch it out on the huge canvas or a smaller canvas, and then work it out. A lot of interiors. A lot of my paintings have to do with interiors and windows and animals, and so a lot of them are based on there. Now they're starting to go outside.
And that's so interesting. Why? Because I always had I didn't realize, but I did a lot of paintings with windows and interior design, like chairs and ladders, and it was just subconscious. I never observed it until a friend of mine was like, why do you always, there's always a little hint of chairs or windows in your painting? And I said, oh my God, you're right. I never realized that. Why do you think that you have this love for interior? Is it because you see details, you're very observant?
Some of my favorite painters, just seeing how they express themselves. I think windows represent a place to escape. I have a lot of confinement and a lot of movement and freedom, all I think in the same paintings, but there always has to place for me to escape, whether it's outside, inside, whether it's an abstraction. I think the need to be able to escape, and not feel so confined, and always like a secret entrance out.
I'm like that too. I'm always wherever I am, I'm always observing windows and thinking, oh, I wish I was outside, or I had I could fly, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to open up this window and take a look and not plummet 4 stories,
of course,
but it would, it's like being able to. God, there's so much green outside. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's because of the season. Because normally, during the winter, it's quite depressive. It's just brown and dead. Yeah. Are you an artist that you get inspired and kind of your emotion is dependable on your surrounding, or?
Very much. Yeah. Very much. I need a lot of green.
Mm-hmm.
I need a lot of quiet. You know, like even just getting here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you really take it in, you realize how much you go through.
Yeah.
Just walking down the street,
Yeah.
noises, sounds, people. You know, people on the phone, dogs barking.
Yeah.
You know, the aggressiveness of just being in a city. There's a beauty in it. I mean, I really love New York.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. But there's a price you pay
Yeah.
for being here. And, you know, that's where I've decided to live.
Yeah.
And there's just a beautiful poetry and brutality living in a city, at least for me.
Yeah.
I don't want to,
No, I agree.
you know.
It's almost like the beauty and the decay, right? Like you
Yes.
give up like your peace of mind in a way. You always have to be alert. You always have to know kind of what's going on. And like for me, I always strive to, like for my brain to go on autopilot in a way, so I can like enjoy life.
Yeah.
Because if I'm constantly thinking or, you know, like figuring out where I have to go, then to me it's like not really enjoyable. And that's kind of like New York in a way, you know.
Yeah, New York is, you know, it's not your city.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying not you.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
No, I get it.
You
Yeah.
know, like if I say New York, if I say no,
Yeah.
it's you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
It influences you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, it influences
Yeah.
me. But it's like living in a John Lautner house, one of my favorite, you know, architects. And when you go into that house, you bring you, but very little.
Mm-hmm.
You're living in his house
Mm-hmm.
and his vision.
Yes.
And same with Neutra, and there's a comfortability being able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to
Yeah.
be able to bring myself to it. So there's this battle that goes on with me in New York City,
Yeah.
where I feel very comfortable in it, and then other times I feel so uncomfortable in my own skin being in the city.
That's very poetic. Do you feel at home in New York City?
It's
Like
funny.
when you leave New York City,
Yeah,
do you miss it?
I
Like, do you
miss
long
it.
for it so much?
I miss it. I'm in an interesting time right now where I don't. I feel very uncomfortable in general, and so just finding out what that is, whether it's going upstate, whether it's being in the city, whether it's traveling. I think there's a need to explore all of it right now. I think that's a roundabout way to answering the question.
Yeah. When, in regards to inspiration, when you're like walking and traveling, are you an artist that like you strive to find inspiration? Like you actively, consciously think, okay, I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to try to get inspired? Or do you kind of just, you know, kind of relax, be in the present, let it go subconsciously?
I think that. I think it's being in the present. I'm not good at searching. You know, like I get distracted. I think that just kind of just going with where you think you are. I mean, I feel like I've grown enough where I don't really search for inspiration. Inspiration's in everything.
Yeah.
You know, there's a yellow motorcycle that's flying down the street. You know, that could just create a color that inspires me.
Yeah.
But you know what's so interesting about doing interviews is that things change so drastically.
Yeah.
You know, I may go for a walk after this and then get inspired. So a lot of things I feel like I have to take a grain of salt when I'm communicating because they change so rapidly.
Yeah.
So I could come back in a year and be like, everything I said was completely not how I felt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like...
That's what I think is like the beauty of artists, you know, and that's why I kind of like want to have the same guest yearly or bi-yearly in a way, because you get to like grow with them. You get to see where they were in that exact time, but also for themselves, like to be able to rewatch yourself and be like, oh my gosh, like it makes so much sense where I am now because in a way I was like subconsciously thinking of certain things. Who knows, like in a year and a half, like you're gonna have like a whole, you could do like, let's say like a whole retrospective made out of like steel and bronze, and you're like, oh my gosh, I was in a way thinking about it and putting it out there in the universe, and it came true, you know. And that's the beauty, you
know, being present. This is inspiring talking to you. two people communicating, trying to get to a place that they're understanding each other. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is a successful life. Yeah. Being able to communicate with people the best you can.
Mm-hmm. And when you're traveling, like when you're away from your studio, are you still actively like drawing or sketching, or are you just kind of like soaking up inspiration?
Just soaking up.
Soaking up inspiration?
Just soaking up, probably more than inspiration, just taking downtime to recoup, to fill back. Yeah. Fill back up kind of what's depleted because you put it all out there. I need a lot of downtime. Mm-hmm. If I finish in the studio, I pretty much am done. Mm-hmm. You know, exhausted.
Like emotionally and physically.
Emotionally exhausted.
Yeah.
Just spent.
Excuse me. That's what I tell a lot of people that aren't artists. Like for me, because at least for me, I can speak. Like I touch on so many emotions, and I feel things that I don't really think about or really know it's there. Yeah. So by the end of the day, I'm like, I really need like to be alone, do a mantra, just be still in a little bit. Are you like that too?
At times. I mean, I've been starting to do transcendental meditation in the morning. Oh, wow. Get back into it. Mm-hmm. It's been very difficult. Mm-hmm. It's just, but I think that's a wonderful way to clear. And then I'm always trying to carve out, you know, the surface to get to what's underneath. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's my one of my goals in my life, to be able to do that. Just constantly examining things and just digging deeper and deeper. And I don't know what I'm going to find. All I know is just hopefully it's something that I'm proud of. Mm-hmm.
And what? Excuse me. cough. And sorry. And creatively, like if you could go back in time and tell yourself something creatively, like an advice, do you have anything you would tell yourself?
Advice. Don't wait for inspiration, and just go with every single thing you have. I really wouldn't. I feel like that's something that stamina grows. You know, you start. You know, paintings get more and more and more complex. In some ways, just different versions of complex. But it's such a hard question. Part of me doesn't believe in advice because people have different experiences with their own advice. I remember, again, I'm not sure where I heard this, but it was talking about advice and just say, you know, what works for you works for you. What works for me works for me. So you're going to bring into advice into a sense that it may not work for you. You know,
that's very interesting. I like that. And do you ever have I'm sure you did, but just to ask, where you kind of show up, as you say, you like to show up and get the work done and be present in the studio to be able to do creative. Have you ever had days where you do, like you show up, you organize your materials, you're ready to go, but nothing really comes out, like inspiration doesn't hit, you try to get creative, but nothing really happens? Like, how are you able to handle that creatively?
So what I do is I go to my table and I have a little mini can of gasoline, and so I put it. It's so interesting. So I put it on the table, and when I'm really having a tough day, I just set it on fire. And the whole thing, and it actually burns down the whole studio. No, I'm joking. That's how I feel. Yeah. So
no, I really thought you were saying like you know those like things for like catering that heat up.
That's how I feel. So oh my god, no, it's. I mean, there's such a unbelievable anger that comes up when you feel like you're just hitting your head against a wall trying to come up with something and it just falls flat. You know, you just want to take a little thing of C4 and just blow it all up. But, something always happens. And if it's a successful painting, it's a successful painting. If it's not, it's not. You know, just get rid of it. Don't hold on. A lot of times I paint over paintings that I like, but I want to really love them. I just don't want to like them. But then that life is underneath that painting. Yeah. So you never really lose the painting.
Yeah, it's always there.
It's always there.
And do you look back at your like previous work for reference sometimes if you're feeling stuck?
Yeah.
Do you keep like a photographic archive of your previous work?
I do, but at the same time, it's a catch-22 because you start to want to repeat something because you got what you wanted.
Yeah.
At the same time, so it's a very slippery slope.
Yeah.
Looking. Sometimes it's nice just to give one day where you just look over some work, but there are times where I've had paintings still up before I put them away while I'm painting, and I'll notice a certain painting and I keep on glancing over it to try to maybe copy it in a weird way, not knowing I'm copying it, but then after going, why do you keep on looking that way? And then you're trying to repeat it, and inevitably that painting that I'm trying to copy fails miserably.
And I have a question. Since I started this podcast, a lot of people, mostly young artists, have reached out and told me to ask certain questions to the artist guests that I'm interviewing. And the main question is what advice or what suggestion would you give? Because we don't want to say advice, as you said. Okay. People have whatever they do. Most of the young artists ask, what would you tell a young artist that kind of wants to get into art, but they don't really know how? They don't know what to do, the next step.
Being a young artist is probably the most exciting thing, because there's no sense of how to do something.
Yeah, you're limitless in a way.
Limitless.
Yeah.
They just go. I remember my first time. I went to this gallery, and someone recommended a gallery. I went in and I had all my paintings, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I literally just said, "Oh, I want to show you my work." I put them on the floor and started opening up, and she started laughing. She's like, "I don't know, what are you doing?" But she ended up seeing the work, and she gave me a show.
Oh, wow.
But it was completely ludicrous to think that that's how you do it. But I didn't know better.
Yeah.
So you have these, you have youth where you don't know better. So these magical things happen. And then as you get older, you start feeling there's certain rules that you that you have to do. So I would just go for it. Because any advice I give you is not, especially advice from older people, in the sense that, if I give advice to this young brand new artist, I'm talking from my experience.
Yeah.
And unless they really ask what my experience is, then I'll give it to them. But pretty much just paint your heart out.
Yeah. Do you have any creative influences that you kind of look to, that you aspire, you get inspired by their work or the way they live their life? It could be artistic, musician, films.
Everyone, there's give and takes in life. Some people are good at one thing and they're brutally awful at something else. Yeah. Or, someone's created an empire and you're just like, that's amazing. But then their internal relationships with people are a mess. I think we're complex people, and to try to, I think it's a good thing to try to figure out how to be the best version of yourself. But, right now, all my energy is going into the work. And so there are other areas that I know I'll have to focus on. But, I feel like I'm just doing the best I can.
Yeah. Well,
right
that's
now.
Beautiful. You're very poetic, I must say. You're very, I don't know, talking to you, it's kind of like a spiritual mantra in a way, those guided meditations that they tell you to do certain things, be present, pay the detail.
I'll take that.
No, that's a good thing, and that's amazing. I think it's fascinating that we're having this talk, and hopefully we have in a year, and it's going to be so fascinating to look back. You look back at yourself, but also the viewers, me, rewatch the episode, and then rewatch the new episode, and kind of compare the two, and see how. The timeline, how everything's happening for you, which is amazing.
I know. I'll be here. I'll be like, I'm smoking my cigarette. I'll be like, what's that noise? What's going on? You'll be like, that's sculpting. You'll be like, what is going on?
Yeah. And are you an artist? Do you ever see yourself? Do you think about collabing with other artists?
Not really. Not right now. It's such a personal thing right now. Yeah. But that doesn't mean in 1 year.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's not, the case. Just right now, I think my journey is really specific on just working solo right now, but that could change. Like I said, a week from now I could call you up really excited, being like, I'm doing this and I'm really profoundly excited about it.
Yeah.
So at this very moment today at 2:30 or whatever time it is, that is how I feel. But that could immediately change as I walk out this door.
That's so fascinating. I love how, I don't know, like talking is like, you remind me a lot of myself, like certain like point of view that you have. And I really enjoyed this conversation because it's like I didn't, like you say certain things that I didn't realize that I do in a certain way. And it's so fascinating. That's why I love having this podcast. So thank you so much for being here once again.
Such a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. Is this like the first podcast you've done?
Yeah.
Yeah? Oh, thank you. That's so cool. Thank you for being here. And I also wanted to ask, do you have anything coming up in the next few months that we can look out to?
Working on a show in Los Angeles.
Okay.
But lots of exciting things coming.
Oh, okay. Thank you. That's so cool. Thank you for being here. And I also wanted to ask, do you have anything coming up in the next few months that we can look out to?
Working on a show in Los Angeles.
Okay.
But lots of exciting things coming.
Oh,
That's all
okay.
I'm gonna say.
Definitely. Okay. And I also want to edit. I was going to say something else, but never mind. Is there anything else you want to talk about? Did we catch everything?
Yeah, no, it was such a pleasure. You're just...
Oh, you see, that's nice. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, there it is, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's such a pleasure just being able to share with somebody who is open to it and who's dedicated their life to doing this.
Yeah.
So it was an absolute pleasure.
Yes, thank you. And as I previously asked you what is coming in the next months, I do have a secret project in regards to the podcast. We'll talk off camera after we're finished. I don't want to jinx it and let everybody know just yet, but hopefully that happens. Do you want to share with us your website and your Instagram?
Yeah, it's Alexander Yulish Art. That's Yulish. And my Instagram's Alexander Yulish.
Okay, perfect. And previous guests, they had people reach out to them in terms of commission.
Yeah.
So now, like, make sure to ask everybody that I interview. Are you open to commissions if people want to reach out?
I've done quite a lot of commissions.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much, Alexander, for being here. It's been a pleasure having you. I'm so glad we got to talk. And the universe works in mysterious ways. So, because who would have thought my first time in Mana, I get to meet you, and then we get to do you're the first artist, actually, that I interviewed from the Mana studio. So I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Tarik Talk. Follow Tarik Talk on all social media channels and check out the video interviews online.